Hello, in this video we're exploring William Blake's famous poem, Our Sunflower. I will unpack the poem, analyse its themes, style and structure, and I'll be providing a stanza by stanza summary. We'll also examine the poet's techniques. Like all the videos I post, they are aimed at those interested in writing and literature and students preparing for an assignment or exam. Before we start, if you haven't subscribed to our channel yet, it would be great if you would. It costs nothing to subscribe and it keeps the channel running. We are a tiny channel, especially compared to the other channels out there on YouTube. But the more subscriptions I receive, the more free content I can make for everybody. So if we could all work together and subscribe and build up the subscriptions, it would be amazing. So please, before you leave, or now before you start, if you could press that subscribe button, it would be an immense help. And while we're talking about participation, thank you so much for the people that email me and leave positive messages of encouragement. Thanks so much, it's greatly appreciated. Well, I have the poem here, so let's start. Ah, sunflower, weary of time, who countest the steps of the sun, seeking after that sweet golden clime, where the traveller's journey is done, where the youth pined away with desire, and the pale virgin, shrouded in snow, arise from their graves and aspire, where my sunflower wishes to go. Blake's poem has numerous meanings, which we'll explore. For most of its life, a sunflower follows the sun's journey from east to west during the day. Also, it looks like a clip art sun or mini sun. Its look and curious movement in the daytime are likely reasons why Blake uses the flower to explore several ideas, including our relationship with God and with the afterlife. Here's an overview. In the poem, the speaker sees a sunflower and identifies with the flower's plight. He perceives it as unhappy like him. Like the sunflower, the speaker is world-weary. He believes he will only find happiness and contentment when he joins God in heaven. God is personified by the sun. Heaven is described as a sweet golden clime. The speaker then mentions people like himself who were unhappy in life but found comfort in their belief that death would return them to God and be happy forever in heaven. Like all great poems, Our Sunflower is open to many interpretations. Let's consider these now with a line-by-line analysis. The poem starts with an apostrophe, a language feature where the text speaker addresses someone or something. Here, the speaker addresses the sunflower, Our Sunflower. This indicates that from the start, this flower will play a central role in the poem's theme. Ah opens the poem to multiple interpretations. It might express the speaker's sympathy, amazement, or yearning, a sigh perhaps. Of course, it could be a combination of all these things. It's left to our interpretation and makes the poem intriguing from the start. What readers know for sure is that this sunflower appears weary of time. That is, tired of the passing of time. The word weary specifically suggests that the flower has been suffering for a while. It's worth noting here that this poem appears in the experience section of Blake's Songs of Innocence and Experience. These experience poems tend to express inconvenient truths about the reality of being alive. The innocence poems, on the other hand, are more joyous and happy. The world-weary speaker's tone fits right in with this section of the book. In line 2, the speaker describes the way the sunflower counts the steps of the sun. These steps refer to the different positions of the sun as it makes its way through the sky, from dawn to dusk, before finally disappearing during the night. Young sunflower blossoms actually do follow the sun as it passes through the sky. Listen to the meter of this line. Who countest the steps of the sun. Countest may also suggest that the sunflower counts on the sun, relies on the sun, which it does for its development and energy. The first foot here is an iamb, da-dum, followed by 2 anapests, da-da-dum. It creates a rising, galloping rhythm that evokes the sun's relentless march across the sky. An anapest is 2 unstressed syllables, followed by a stressed third syllable. Da-da-dum. Here, est the steps. Notice too how the second line also evokes the flower's weariness through quiet sibilance, repetition of S sounds, some of which is also an example of alliteration. Who countest the steps of the sun. All these whispery S sounds connote sleepiness and even weakness. It sounds like the sunflower's energy is sapping and seeping away. The sunflower longs to be close to the sun, but for all its sunward stretching, it remains rooted firmly in the earth. Sibilance suggests the sun's smooth transition movement across the sky. It contrasts with the sunflower's lack of freedom to roam because it is stuck on earth and grounded in earth. Lines 3 and 4 continue to discuss the sunflower's longing for the sun and start to associate the sun with the heavenly afterlife. The sunflower has already been personified as weary of time in line 1, and here the speaker presents it as a creature capable of feeling desire. It seeks after that sweet golden clime. In other words, it spends its life stretching upwards to the warmth and light of the sun. In line 4, Blake lists 3 sensory descriptions, all positive, to stress the wonders the afterlife promises. The world of the sun is sweet, perhaps in contrast to the bitterness of earthly life, and golden, a word that literally refers to the sun's light, but also treats this light as something valuable, beautiful, and good. Clime, meanwhile, refers to a region, atmosphere, but could also be a pun on climb, given that this alternative world is somewhere up there. It's no coincidence that this sweet golden clime sounds a lot like a description of heaven, a place of eternal joy, suffused with beautiful light and gentle bliss. Although he rejected organised religion, Blake believed strongly in the afterlife. This sweet golden clime is the place where the traveller goes after their journey is done. This journey is a metaphor for life, something that the poem conceives of as ending with a return to heaven. Death, the poem implies, brings with it a sense of relief and release as the soul returns to God. Life on earth is only temporary, while glory true joy, beauty, and peace await in eternity. This idea concludes the stanza, thus adding to the sense of a journey being completed. Son is likely a pun for son, meaning the Son of God, Jesus. The orbit around the sun was generally accepted science by Blake's time. The poem suggests the sunflower is returning home from where its life journey began. The orbit represents this circle of life. Therefore, stanza 1 presents a personified sunflower seeking after that sweet golden clime, that is, reaching for the lovely, peaceful warmth of the sun. This flower is weary of time. However, perhaps because each day seems the same, it stretches and stretches towards the sun, but can never reach it. And this is important for one of the major themes in the poem. It even counts the steps of the sun, suggesting that it takes note of the sun's passage into and out of the sky each day, almost like a prisoner chalking off each day of their sentence. Blake establishes a relationship between the speaker, the sunflower, and the sun early on. Readers likely get the sense that the speaker isn't just talking about a flower here, that sweet golden clime sounds a lot like heaven, a similarity bolstered by the fact that the speaker calls it the place where the traveller's journey is done. The word traveller nods to the common metaphor of life being a journey, and the poem thus implies that this golden destination can only be reached in death, that is, at the end of life's journey. Note too that the sunny yellow flower resembles the sun that it follows. Humanity is likewise created in God's image, and the poem implies that humanity naturally longs to be with God. Note too how the poem uses alliteration and assonance to link the sunflower's desire with the object of desire, the sun. The flower is seeking that sweet golden world. Those long E sounds evoke the strain of the sunflower's efforts. Assonance, the repetition of vowel sounds, evokes a sense of leisure too, and rest, and something eternal. It achieves this by slowing down our reading of the line. These lines suggest that the speaker is world-weary and seeks release from life's hardships. He yearns for eternal happiness, as the sunflower yearns for the sun. In lines 5 to 6, Blake introduces two more travellers who yearn for heaven's golden clime. In contrast to the speaker, both are dead. The second stanza focuses on two figures other than the sunflower, the youth or young person and the virgin. Here it becomes even clearer that the sweet golden clime referred to in line 3 is in fact the heavenly afterlife. The anaphora of where in line 5 demonstrates that this section of the poem is a continuation of the first stanza. That is, that the setting is the same, where the traveller's journey is done, where the youth pined away with desire. The speaker first introduces the youth. The capitalization suggests this is an archetype of youths in general, rather than one young person. This technique, synecdoche, is where one item or person represents many. Like the sunflower, the youth's life was defined by desire. Indeed, the youth's meaning the youth, plus the pale virgin, their lives were destroyed by desire. They not only pined, meaning they felt a deep, unsatisfied longing, but they pined away, in the sense that their longing took them away from earthly life. The long I assonance of pined and desire has an almost whiny, desperate sound that evokes this state of restless dissatisfaction. The pale virgin is a similar character to the youth. Both are defined by their relationship to desire. However, the virgin's preoccupation is more with remaining pure than satisfying an earthly longing. So how is the youth, the virgin, and the sunflower linked other than sounding like the beginning of a joke? All of them are incomplete, and the suggestion here is that the youth and the virgin will be complete only in the afterlife. The connection between the youth and the virgin might be linked further. Perhaps he desired the virgin, but religious teaching forbade their union outside marriage. He pines away with desire, and she, perhaps heartbroken, has passed away. However, the poem is open to many interpretations. This stanza might refer to unrequited love. That means love that is not returned. Equally, desire might mean more than sexual desire, a desire for fame or wealth or a happiness the world cannot provide. Shrouded implies she is dead, as the word means covered, and a shroud is a garment the dead wear. Considering this poem appears in the experience section of Songs of Innocence and Experience, it's also possible that these descriptions contain an element of criticism. Blake believed that organised religion was an oppressive force and denied people a true relationship with God, and importantly made them miss out on the joys of life in a physical, temporary body. The virgin's paleness might describe her beauty. Pale was also considered an attractive quality at the time. It might confirm she is dead, supported by the shroud and snow reference, which is associated, of course, with cold. Pale might also describe a female drained of hope, desire, or even fun by the teachings of the established church Blake opposed. Pale and the reference to snow may also suggest purity. The colour white, that of snow, is associated with purity, yet snow is cold. Perhaps she fought her sexual desires and died a virgin, or possibly a nun who dedicated her life to God. The word virgin also is associated with the Virgin Mary, so there are lots of religious associations and references in this section of the poem, and we are free to interpret these any way we like. The speaker does not judge either figure, but links them to their hope that their death will return them to God, symbolized by the sun, and that they will experience everlasting peace and happiness. Virgins in literature and art were generally associated with purity and innocence. Alliteration occurs in lines 5 and 6 with the plosive P sounds of pined and pale. This alliteration is subtle, given the space between these words, but it still connects the poem's two human figures: the youth who wasted away with desire, and the virgin who died chaste, shrouded in snow. Antithesis contrasts the sun's warmth with death, and unrequited love's coldness, shrouded in snow. Sibilance then conjures a wintry atmosphere in line 6's shrouded in snow. Lines 7 to 8, the poem's last two lines, describe the ultimate destination of the youth and the pale virgin. From lines 5 and 6, the sweet golden clime of heaven. This final resting place is only attainable through death. Once the youth and virgin are in their graves, they can arise out and ascend, aspire to heaven. The place where, another moment of anaphora, the sunflower wishes to go, suggesting that all life ultimately longs for this return to God. They too are heaven bound. Notice how the assonance of arise and aspire adds energy and emphasis to this important moment in the poem. These words also feature a rising metrical rhythm, arise, aspire, that subtly enacts the soaring movement being described. Assonance creates an airy feeling of rising heavenwards from their graves. And at this point of the poem, the reference to the Virgin Mary is apt, because in the New Testament, the Virgin Mary, the mother of Jesus Christ, is said to have risen, ascended to heaven. So this may be another reference worth exploring, which fits into the theme of rising. Death, as the poem presents it, is the way we transit to heaven and find a peace the world cannot provide in life. The last line, still using personification, portrays the sunflower as also wishing to ascend to heaven. The interesting twist, though, is that the speaker here uses the possessive adjective my. The speaker didn't begin the poem with my sunflower, so it's a curious and significant moment. The poem's final line features alliteration as well, where my sunflower wishes to go. The w sounds here are softly melodic, and they also chime with the w in flower, an example of consonance. They make the ending sound subtly hopeful, and they also link the flower with heaven, that where and desire wishes. My implies that the speaker feels a connection with the sunflower. The latter's instinctive longing to be with the sun neatly mirrors how the speaker perhaps feels about God. Neither can go where they want to just yet, but in death, the poem suggests, all longing will be fulfilled. Now, let's look at the poem's key symbols, beginning with the sunflower. The sunflower's relationship with the sun symbolises humanity's relationship with God. The sunflower yearns to be with the sun, as we saw, the Son of God. Its bright yellow bloom even looks like the sun. Likewise, Christianity teaches that humanity is made in God's image, and just as the flower reaches for that sweet golden clime, the poem implies that human beings seek reunion with God in heaven. The use of the word my in line 8 further implies that the speaker recognises themselves in the sunflower, that the flower's seeking represents the speaker's own. Equally, like the man for the time being is anchored to the world and cannot ascend just yet to heaven, so is the sunflower rooted in the earth. So the association is a strong association between the sunflower and the speaker. The sunflower is rooted to the earth, yet wishes to rise and join the sun. Perhaps the speaker's position is similar. He is tied to his social class, with little opportunity to advance and develop. He sees his unhappy situation in the thwarted aspiration, wishes of the sunflower. Mai suggests the sunflower is an emblem of the speaker's thwarted desire. It creates a bond between them. The sun represents both heaven and God. Like God, the sun gives life. In the poem, the sunflower, the youth, and the virgin wish to join the sun. Ah, sunflower. Now, let's examine the poetic devices and figurative language used. Regarding language, alliteration is used to bring images and emotions to life on the page. The strongest alliteration appears in lines 2 to 3. Who countest the steps of the sun, seeking after that sweet golden clime. These sibilant sounds add a gentle hush to the poem's opening stanza. These are soft, sleepy sounds that evoke the sunflower's weariness. It's tired of chasing after the sun all day, every day. Assonance, seeking after that sweet golden clime, meaning the sun, heaven. Here, the assonance of the long E sounds combines with the sibilants, seeking and sweet, to add intensity and emphasis to this description of the flower's longing. Aspire is likely a pun too, because its second meaning is a wish or desire. All the figures aspire to join and find happiness. They are aspirational. The words arise and aspire in line 7 link death with spiritual release. The dead arise from their graves in the earth and aspire, that is, ascend to heaven. The shared vowel conveys how one action, death, leads to the other, rising to heaven. Now let's examine some metaphors. Sunflower uses multiple metaphors, including the specific metaphor of personification, to make the sunflower and the sun seem human or godlike, respectively. First, the speaker describes the flower as a figure who counts the steps of the sun. This metaphorical description of the way that young sunflower blossoms quite literally tilt along with the sun as it moves across the sky. This metaphor brings the flower to life and makes it sound like the plant is closely and intently watching the sun and following it. The speaker describes the sunflower as dissatisfied and weary. The steps of the sun could also be read as personification, with the sun walking overhead. This personification clues readers into the fact that the relationship between the sunflower and the sun represents the relationship between humanity and God. People like the sunflower seek the sweet golden clime where the traveller's journey is done, that is, the golden light of the heavenly afterlife. There are more metaphors in lines 3 and 4 which link the sun with the heavenly afterlife. Sunflower, weary of time, who countest the steps of the sun, seeking after that sweet golden clime where the traveller's journey is done. In literature and art, life is commonly referred to as a metaphorical symbolic journey, a trip made from one point in time to another. The traveller here is simply someone on that earthly journey, which is done when the traveller dies. Blake's poem presents death as a kind of release from the frustrations of earthly life. In death, people and sunflowers are set free from their longing and reunited with God in that sweet golden clime that is heaven itself. They are reunited with their Creator. Note that climb also works as a subtle pun on climb, given that all the figures in the poem are reaching or rising towards this sweet golden place. Using this metaphor makes sure that the reader doesn't miss the point. The speaker isn't really, or not exclusively at least, talking about sunflowers and the sun. The poem is really about humanity's relationship with God and the journey of life. Now let's examine some of the repetition contained in the poem. Our sunflower uses repetition to focus the reader's attention on the sweet golden clime in the sky, that is, on the sun heaven. Lines 4, 5 and 8 all begin with where. Lines 4 and 5 with where the, an example of anaphora that stresses the importance of the poem's setting, where the traveller's journey is done, where the youth pined away with desire, where my sunflower wishes to go. Our sunflower has a simple form, 2 quatrains, or 4-line stanzas, with a alternating AB, AB rhyme scheme. Quatrains are common throughout Blake's songs of innocence and experience and poetry in general. This common rhyme scheme lends the poem structure and makes it memorable. Blake uses simple vocabulary, fitting for a book that focuses in great part on childhood. This section, Experience, dispels childish notions with an understanding of the world's ways. And the poem contains a world weariness. The sunflower desperately seeks to join the sun in its heaven. Our sunflower uses metre loosely. It's organised around anapests, feet with 2 unstressed syllables, followed by a stressed syllable, creating a da-da-dum rhythm. Most lines contain 3 anapests, making them anapestic trimeter. Line 4 provides a clear example of this meter at work, where the traveller's journey is done. Rising meter, meaning it moves steadily from unstressed to stressed beats. In this way, it subtly evokes the endless seeking of the sunflower itself as it stretches towards the sun. As we saw before, anapests also convey a galloping or marching rhythm, perhaps evoking the relentlessness of this desire for the sun stroke heaven. The poem features some metrical variations as well. Line 2 uses an I am dadum in its first foot. For example, who countest the steps of the sun. Varying the rhythm throughout the poem keeps the language from becoming too stuffy or repetitive. So just who is the poem speaker? Like most of Blake's poems, Our Sunflower doesn't give much away about the speaker. The speaker represents us all and our daily sense of failure, unhappiness, and unfulfilled desires. We empathise with the speaker. Written in the first person, it strengthens our connection with him because he shares his deepest thoughts and feelings with us. Now let's consider themes. Our sunflower suggests that we live in a perpetual state of longing. The poem's images of a sunflower reaching towards the light and warmth of the sun evokes the human longing to be reunited with God in heaven. In this interpretation of the poem, life on earth is a journey back to God's loving embrace. The youth and virgin reinforce this belief and give the theme a universal quality. It applies to us all. In Blake's time, people in England and Europe were frequent church attenders and followed a religion overwhelmingly Christian. The poem's sentiments, ideas would have significant meaning to them. Presence is the theme of unrequited love. Love and passions that never blossomed. These are embodied in the youth and the virgin. The speaker describes a young person who pined away with desire and a pale virgin shrouded, that is, buried in snow. The image of the untouched virgin and desirous youth arising from their tombs suggests that life isn't really fulfilled until people are with God again. The virgin in the snow is kept on ice, waiting for her metaphorical bridegroom, God, while the youth pined forever until he died. Only after death can both finally go to that sweet golden clime the sunflower itself wishes to go. Only there will they find fulfillment, contentment, and satisfaction. The sun following sunflower thus stands for people and their desire to go to their heavenly home, which is perhaps why the speaker describes it as my sunflower. The speaker senses the same longing the sunflower feels to return to that sweet golden clime of heaven, a blissful eternity that has no place for the weariness of time. Living beings, the poem suggests, come from God and go back to God, return to him, with the adventure of earthly life taking place between these 2 points in eternity. It's worth noting, though, that the poem can also be read as criticising the denial of the joys of earthly life in anticipation of the return to heaven. So it's always important to look for alternative interpretations and explanations. For example, Blake often expressed the belief that people should embrace their instincts rather than give in to the oppressive rules and teachings of organised religion. So both interpretations are valid. Perhaps the poem is at once acknowledging the longed for bliss of an eternal heaven and pointing out how this desire might distract people from the brief but bright temporary pleasures of being alive. Let's consider the poem's literary and historical context. William Blake, who lived 1757 to 1827, is a poet unlike any other. Often considered one of the first of the English Romantics, he also stands apart from any movement as a unique philosopher, prophet and artist. He is considered eccentric with his quirky spellings and capitalisation of words, sunflower for example, but his exceptional skill as an artist and writer is undeniable. Blake published Our Sunflower in the experience section of his best known work, Songs of Innocence and of Experience, 1794. This 2-part book examines what Blake called the 2 contrary states of the human soul, and many of the poems in Songs of Innocence have a counterpart in Songs of Experience, a twin poem that reads the same subjects from a new perspective. The first from the point of view of a child, the second from the point of view of an adult. Blake didn't just write poetry, he also designed, engraved, printed, painted and published illuminated manuscripts using a technique he called the infernal method. Here's his illustration for Our Sunflower. William Blake was a deeply religious man, but highly critical of organised religion. He was born to a family of dissenters, a group of English Protestants who broke away from and rebelled against the Church of England. He generally saw top-down religious structures as preventing a more direct relationship between humanity and God. Many of his poems criticised the church and what it had become. It was an institution that had grown rich, filled with self-serving ministers who preached punishment and rarely demonstrated love towards its poorest, disadvantaged members. Blake cared deeply for the poor and oppressed in society, and his poems document their plight. For more information, check out my other videos about William Blake's poems, including London and A Poison Tree. Thank you for watching this video. I hope you found it helpful and interesting. Please check out my other videos on analysis and creative writing, including, as I've just said, other poems by William Blake. I'm always adding videos. To be kept updated when another one lands, please hit the thumbs up icon before you leave. Also, if you haven't yet subscribed, it would be greatly appreciated if you would. It helps me make these videos and helps me make them more frequently. Thank you. Until next time, write well.